Okay, so I'm going to start this exercise in a new file, and whether you've got a file open already or you've just started the program, you can always go to the main menu and click New. You don't even need to choose an option, and that's something I think where people often go wrong with programs in Windows. They see an arrow and automatically go to the menu that pops out. If you see a button that has a line next to the arrow, that means you can click on that. It's a button. And just to show you the difference, export here. Notice how there's no line next to the arrow there. So this isn't a button. If I click on export, it won't do anything. But if I click on new, because there's a line next to that arrow, it works as a button and it gives you the default option. So that's hopefully a good tip, and then you can choose the template that you need. And here, first thing I'd say I would do differently is to not use the AutoCAD template, but instead use the AutoCAD ISO template. AutoCAD works. AutoCAD is set up for metric, but it's also set up for imperial. It's a bit of a hybrid. It works with both. So imperial means feet and inches, but you should never need to use feet and inches. And it's better if you have something set up just for metric. So AutoCAD ISO is the International Standards Organization, is a better one. So if you use that, you'll be better off. Don't worry if you've started a new file already using a different template, but when you start your new files for later exercises, try to use AutoCAD ISO. So double clicking will make the new file. And now, straight away I'm going to do a save as, and just save it into my own folder, which I already have open there. And I'm going to call it Exercise 1. So that's pretty straightforward. Now I need to make some layers. So it tells you here the shortcut for layers, and it's good to try and start using the shortcuts. With AutoCAD it's really easy to learn them, because if you type a letter, here I'm just going to type L, and it's normally the first letter of a command will give you the shortcut, but L is actually the shortcut for line, and you can see there it's showing me in the list here all these other commands under line. So when it's not the first letter, it's the first two letters usually. So for layer, it's not L, it's LA. And you can see there, it does show LA in brackets, or layer in brackets. So LA, enter, gives you the layer manager. I'll close that and show you maybe a much easier way, which is using the ribbon at the top. You have the layer properties button, which brings it up as well. So another part that can be a bit tricky when you're working with layers is this bit on the left, which is really to manage groups and hierarchies of layers. And you shouldn't need to do that at this point. So ignore that section on the left where you have the three buttons at the top and this hierarchy with all and all used layers. Just ignore that. So all you should need is the panel to the right where it has the name, and that 0 there is a layer. So layer 0 is your system layer that you begin with, and then the 4 buttons above that are the only buttons you should need to use here as well. So the first one in that group of 4 is the new layer button. So I'm just going to click on that 1, 2, 3 times, and I've got 3 new layers. And so the first layer, layer 1, is going to be left white. Layer 2 is going to be blue. Remembering the standard colours are at the bottom here. And then layer 3 will be red. So again, not up here, but down the bottom you have that colour number 1, which is red. And then we need to set the line type, so that means dashed and dotted lines. And it tells you how you can load them through the properties palette in here. And so if you found the properties palette, that's good. It's over here on the ribbon. And you can load it that way by going to the line type panel here and choosing other. But I'm not going to show you that way. I'm going to show you a much easier way. Just click on the line type next to the layer that you want to change. So they're all continuous. If I click next to where I have layer 3 continuous, it'll show me I've only got one line type to choose from, but I'm going to click load. And again, in the notes it tells you to load all of the line types, but I think that just gives you too many to choose from. I'm just going to choose dashed from the list there and click OK. We don't need that one. And now I'm going to choose dashed to set it to the layer. So after you load it, you still need to select it again. Clicking OK, then you'll see it's assigned to that layer. Next, I want to assign the line weights. Okay, so you can see the pen weights here, 0.35 for layer 1. So next to colour and line type, you then have line weight. So layer 1, 0.35. Layer 2, 0.25. And then layer 3, 0.18. Okay, so now finally we've got to set layer 1 to be the current layer. And the easy way is to double click on the little swatch next to the layer name, and that'll turn it into a tick. So you know it's the current layer, and it'll tell you up the top as well. That's done. So I'm going to close that layer panel now, and then can start drawing. And it tells you can draw a 1 metre line to use as a reference. So just zooming out a bit there. So after setting layer 1, you can see here, draw 1 metre long line using the dynamic input method. That works, but I'm going to show you, I think, a better way to start any drawing. And that's to draw a rectangle the way you have in those previous exercises. So just try to remember these steps. It's a good way to start drawing anything in AutoCAD until you get used to the way the display system works. So I'm just going to click on the rectangle button, type 0, 0, enter, and that will start on the origin. It's always a good place to start your page on the origin of your file. And then, do you remember the size of the rectangle you did in the geometry exercise? Yeah, 297, 00, that's right. So that's a good one to remember. That's the width of an A4 page times 100. And then, so I've done that, and now I'm going to press comma and give the second size exactly 210, 00 again. And that's again A4 dimension the other way. Enter. And now I want to zoom out to see that whole border. So I'll double click with the wheel, and that's a zoom extents. So that gives you a good frame of reference. If you're wondering how big all of this will be in that border, this is 1 to 50. So 1 to 50 is half in each direction. So half in each direction means from the midpoint here, I'm just drawing a line across to the midpoint on the other side, and then from the midpoint at the top down to the midpoint at the bottom. Okay, so when people say half the size, they usually mean a quarter the area. So 50% of the size of an A4 is actually a quarter of the area, because it's half in each direction. So 1 to 50 would be a quarter of the area of a 1 to 100. And it's important to start thinking about these things. You'll get more used to it as you do more drawing as well, more hand drawing as well. So now I can zoom into that area, and that's where everything should fit. Don't worry, if you haven't drawn that dividing cross, you can still draw your shapes. So then the squares, 1 metre by 1 metre, and then copied to the right another metre. So I'm just going to draw with the rectangle tool, clicking somewhere to start, and then 1,000, comma, 1,000. Oops, I typed 100, so I'll just do that again. So 1,000, comma, 1,000, enter. So that should be pretty straightforward. Now I want to copy the whole thing to the right, so that there's a metre between them. So I'm going to use copy up here, select my rectangle and press enter. Click to pick it up. It doesn't matter where I click, just anywhere at all. So I can see it's set a base point. But now I want either ortho or polar to be on. And because we're going to be using polar a lot with this exercise, I'm going to turn that on instead of ortho. So those two options are interchangeable. You can only have one of them on. Make sure you're aware of the difference between them and how to turn them on. So I've got polar on, and I can then make it snap to 0 degrees. And then how far across do I want to take it? So that I have a metre gap. Hello? No, well, I want a metre between them, but how big's the rectangle? So the rectangle's 1,000 as well. So we want to go across 2,000. So I've just, with the cursor, given my angle, and now I can type 2,000, enter, and if I measure that distance, you'll see it is 1,000 between them, but from the corner here to the corner of the next one is 2,000. That's why I had to copy it across that distance. So then, following on with the next exercise, drawing the circles. So they're on layer 3. So you can just go to draw a circle and type in 500 for the radius, which will give you 1,000 diameter. And I think it tells you in the notes to use some different methods for drawing circles. So just experiment with the different options. It's up to you which ones you use. Centre diameter, 2 point, 3 point, they're all useful. 10, 10 radius and 10, 10, 10 are a little bit harder, but with 2 point you should easily be able to get a 1,000 diameter circle. And then also with centre diameter, of course, you can as well. Right. So then the arcs, well, here we've got some more circles to draw. I'm not going to worry about those. I'll let you try those. So, well, maybe I will just quickly draw a what is it, 250 diameter circle and copy them across instead of drawing them in different ways, just so they're there. Oops. Now I'm using the shortcut there for copy, and if you're wondering, it's not C, because C is the shortcut for circle, so CO is the shortcut for copy. And notice how with AutoCAD, you don't need to repeat the copy command if you want to copy many times. You can just keep clicking. It's automatically set to copy multiple. So I'll just keep copying until you press enter to let it know you're finished. And then with the arcs, again, it's just a good chance to experiment with those different arc options. I'm going to change to layer 2 for these. And so just choose some different options there. So 3 point is a really useful one. I know it's hard to see on the projector, so I'll make that blue a bit lighter. And then start, centre, end is another useful one. So the centre point would be around here. And the start would have to be here because it goes anti-clockwise by default. So here roughly would be my centre point. And sorry, did I? Yep, there we go. And then my start point would be there, and that's gone the wrong way, so let's just try that again. Start centre end. Sorry, I'm thinking of centre start end. So start centre end. So here would be my start point, sorry, there would be my centre point, and then coming around now would be my end point. And then just something different, we'll choose a direction of, so start end direction is an interesting one. So there, the start and the end, you can give first. So the start and the end. And then you choose the direction, which at the same time is going to set the radius. So the arc can go in either direction. And notice how moving that angle sets the radius. That's close enough. The ellipses, you've got a radius here, 529, or it's the first radius really. So with the ellipse tool, just make sure you're using the default option, which is centre. So once you've clicked that first point, you can just move the cursor up, type in 529, enter, and then move the cursor left and right to set the other dimension, which is arbitrary. It's up to you. So same with the second one, click to give the centre point, move it up to give that first dimension 529, enter, and now moving it left and right, you can set a different second dimension. Now I'm going to leave the donuts for now. You can tell I'm not a big fan of donuts, but we'll come back to them later. So these little exercises here, if you've had a go at these, it should be easier, but if you haven't, you should still be able to follow along. So I'll go back to layer 1. And I know I showed you this last week, but I'll just show you again. Okay, so drawing a line. And here you could draw a rectangle, but you'd have to explode it anyway. So it's easier just to draw a line, 1,000. This time 1,000 to the left. Down 750. And then across 1,000. And then with a circle, I'm going to go from the midpoint of this line on the left-hand side and then type in the radius, which is 406. And it should be bigger than that shape. Now, I want this intersection here to come across. So I'm going to select the circle and click move. Snapping to the intersection there, then I can go to the end point of that line on the right. And then using trim, I can select these two lines as my cutting edges, press enter, and then choose the parts to take away. That one's done. So with the arrow, you can start it in a similar way just by going to draw a line, and then we're going to come across 250, enter, and then up 500. So now it's at 625, but you've got to divide that 250 by 2 to work out where the middle of the arrow is. That's 125. So 625 minus 125 is 500. So coming up that distance, 500. And now, notice it's snapping to 45 degrees because I've got polar turned on. If it doesn't, just check your angle setting in that menu you get next to polar, the arrow there, will give you the angles. So make sure you're aware that with polar you often need to change those angles. And so now I'm just going to make sure it snaps to 45 and take it down any distance. I don't know how long this line is yet. I'm just going to click, press enter, and then start drawing a new line from the first point down 250, across 250, down 500, and now up 45 degrees so that it crosses the previous line. Then with fillet, you can join those together. Now, this one is a little bit trickier, drawing the ellipse here, because there you'll need to use a different option. So this axis endpoint, or actually, sorry, the first one would work as well. You just have to divide it by 2. So with centre, it's not too bad actually. So you can just click a start point, take it up 250, and then across 1,000. But make sure, sorry, I wasn't careful there. Just do that again. So make sure it's going in a straight line. So again, up 250, that was okay. But then across, there we are. So you've got to make sure it goes 0 degrees, not down, because that's where it'll measure the distance to. So it has to be in that angle 0, and then 1,000, so that's done. And here it's just 2 circles, so that shouldn't be too difficult. 400, and then you could offset 100 mil to get the second one. Then this next one's a little bit trickier, because you have some angles, but you're not given the length of those angled lines. So once you see the basic method though, you should easily be able to work it out. And so just when you have a situation like this and you're not sure how to draw it, just look at the measurements you're given and try to set those out. So there's a few ways. If you draw a line from any point, they're roughly across 2,000. Enter. And I might just bring that down a bit so I don't have enough room. Okay, so the next dimension I have on the side there is 500. So I'm going to offset that line using that measurement, 500. And now offset again 1,050. Now I'm going to draw a line on the side, because you've got a dimension across here 500. So if you've done this using the angles, don't worry, that's fine as well, but just want to show you a different way. That gives me everything I need to draw the rest of it. I don't need to use any angle snaps or anything like that. Because just think about your basic trigonometry. If you come across a certain distance and then up the same distance, the angle between those 2 points is going to be always 45 degrees. Okay, so that's what I've got here. It's a square, come across 500 and then up 500, and so the angle across that square, again, is always 45. So with a line there, from the corner at the bottom, up to this intersection, will give me the angle 45. And now again, to get this angle, which is 65, same on the other side, I can just come up to the top left corner. Right, so that's just to show you how important construction lines can be. Often putting in those extra lines to help you set things out, make life much easier. You can delete those extra lines now, and I'm left just with what I need. And so I want this to be identical on the other side, or to be symmetrical, or a mirror image, so I can use the mirror command and to modify mirror. And so here you need to find the axis that you want to mirror across, and the axis is going to be between the midpoint on the top edge and the midpoint on the bottom edge. So always look for that vertical or horizontal axis, usually. Sometimes it's at a different angle, but usually vertical or horizontal, to find that axis. So I can click. I know I've got it right because I can see the copy in the right place. But don't be surprised when it disappears. It's just asking if you want the source objects to be deleted or not. And normally there you can just press enter, which will keep them. So, as always, when you get something important done, save the file. It can crash. And then so the rest of it is done with those horrible donuts. So they're not that bad really. So just going back to the draw menu, you can find donut there, or if you go to the panel under the draw panel on the ribbon, you've got to click on the arrow there to get donuts. Okay, so here you're given a radius for the outside, but you're not given a radius for the inside. So you can just assume it's half though. And so that means if the outer radius is 175, therefore the outer diameter is double that, and so it's 350. So the inner radius then would be half that again, so 175. And you need to know that first. So it asks you for the inner diameter. Did I say inner radius? So inner diameter is half, so 175 for the inner diameter. And then for the outer diameter, double, so 350. And then you can place as many as you like. It's one of those strange old commands. They just haven't changed the syntax or the order that you do things since it first came out in 1981 or something like that. But once you get used to following the command prompt, you can easily work those things out. So the command prompt again down the bottom always asks you for the information the program wants. And so now I want to draw a donut with no hole in the middle, so a solid circle. So there'll be 0 for the inside diameter, and then the outside diameter again is double the radius, so 500. Click to place it, enter to finish, and then one more donut on its own with again an inner diameter of 0, so enter to keep it, and then an outer diameter of 250. So finally then you have an exercise where they're both combined. You have a donut and a circle. So with this one, again, you're not given an inner diameter. The outer diameter is double this, so it'll be 880. And I think you can just assume, if you're not given it, that it's either 100 or 50. I'm going to say it looks close enough to 100, so let's just make it that. So, okay, so with donut, again, okay, so the inner radius would be 340 times 2, so 680. So I've just got the outer radius is 440, so I've come in 100 mil, which gives me 340, and then I'm doubling that to make it into diameter, so 680. And then so the outside diameter will be just double that radius, so 880. And I'll click to place it. And now I want to draw a circle that's centered on that donut. So there's a bit of a trick there. Just move over the donut and it should then highlight the center. If it doesn't, check your object snap settings, and if you're not sure, object snap is the button that has the rectangle with the asterisk in the corner on the control bar at the bottom. And next to that there's a little arrow where you can check which ones are turned on. And if you want a good setting for that, this is a good rule of thumb to have the ones I'm going to show you set on or turned on now. So the first ones here, endpoint, midpoint, center, node, quadrant, intersection, should be on. Extension as well is useful, not essential. Insertion and perpendicular, but not tangent, nearest, or even parallel. So it's easier to remember maybe the ones you don't want turned on. So tangent, nearest, and parallel. Often the ones that you won't know, really, the reason for their existence at first anyway. Maybe parallel you would, but it's easier to have that turned off. So that's a good all-round setting. And so now, again, I've got center turned on, so I know it should give me the center of this donut. And then the radius is 750. That doesn't look quite the same. So I think it might have given you this, I don't know what radius they've given you there. But we're following the measurements. That's close enough, I think, really, for this. So I'm going to leave it like that. And then I really wanted to show you how to get some text and dimensions working so that you can label it and also put in these symbols, which are good things to draw. And you can reuse those in your later drawings as well. So the first thing is to get some text. And okay, so always when you're going to make text in AutoCAD, set a text style first. It just makes everything easier. And it might help you with other programs as well. So Word uses text styles as well, just most people ignore it. But if you start using text styles in Word, trust me, it'll make your life easier there too. So with the Annotation Panel, just going to bring it over so you can see the way you'll have it normally. So here's your Annotation Panel. On the Draw tab, also on the Home tab, you have Annotation next to Modify. And you need to click on the little down arrow there to get the list of the different annotation options. And if you haven't made a text style yet, it'll just say Standard, because you'll only have a couple of text styles initially. And so the button with the A, just to the left where it says Standard, or left of where it says Standard, is your text style button, where you make and modify text styles, not textiles. And so there it has, again, those two text styles, annotative and standard. But to make a new one, obviously you can click on the new button. And here, well, you don't really even need to give a name. You could leave it with style 1 if you like. And the font is up to you. Here it is just Arial. But if you want to try out some different fonts, you're welcome to. There are plenty of other good fonts to use than Arial. I like Tahoma and a few others that are good. And it shows you a picture here as well, where you can see what they're like, and you can play with different text there as well. The main option, though, other than the font, is the size. So in here, I think, did they give you a text size? Do they remember? Well, they don't tell you anything about text, do they? No. So you might see in some of the later exercises, they tell you to make different text sizes. But try to remember this. If you just make it the size you want it to print. So have you gone through print sizes for text? When you're drawing your own text? Do you know how to... Okay, so it's a good thing to start doing when you're drafting. Just rule a couple of lines with the spacing that you've measured so that you can then draw your text the same size. And so if you're wondering what some standard text heights are, 2.5, 3.5 and then 5 mil is a good starting point. So I'm going to make it 2.5, which is going to be my smallest text. And then the other option, not everyone likes this, but I think if you learn to use it, it's better than doing it in any other way. And again, I've used AutoCAD for a long time and tried all the other ways. Annotative, I think, is the best way of setting the size of your text. It's basically going to use the scale automatically. So it should make your life easier. Yeah. Okay, so that's it. Apply and then close. We'll set that as the current text style. And I'll begin just by putting some of these notes in. I'm not going to type it all out, but it's good just to try getting some of that in so that it looks the same as what you've got on the page. So with the multi-line text tool, so maybe when you click on the arrow under text, you have two options, single line and multi-line. And here, I'm going to use multi-line. Most of the time you can just use multi-line. And it's going to straight away ask me for a scale because I've set annotative. And here, I'm going to choose the scale we know it is, 1 to 50. You'll see that on the drawing over here. It tells you down the bottom what the scale is. Okay, so as long as you do that, it will work really well. I'm going to click OK. And it's going to click a start point for my paragraph. And then a second point for the bottom right corner of the paragraph. So notice I made it pretty big because I might want to put a lot of text in there. And then I'm going to just type, with caps on, start a new drawing with the, not AutoCAD, AutoCAD ISO template. And let's make it look the way it does in the program. AutoCAD ISO dot DWT, just means drawing template. By choosing new from the main menu. Okay, so the main menu is the big A in the top left corner if you're not sure. And with multi-line text, you can press enter and it will move down to the next line. And I'll just type that in, so save the drawing. So I'm changing the steps a little bit to what they probably could be instead. With your name as the title. Hopefully you do have that already, but if you don't, make sure you do create a folder with your name in the class folder. Okay, so notice there it's gone down to the next line. Also, it's gone over the page border. And it's gone tiny. So let's have a look at that. Okay, that's a bit of a funny thing. If that happens, don't panic. If you select your text, right-click and go to Properties, you can see the height and you can see what it's done there. It's made it 0.05 when we know it should have been 2.5. So I can easily change that afterwards and it'll come back. Now that can happen the first time you go to make text. It's just an error in the way that it picks up the scale. But just to prove to you that it will work after this, I'll go to draw some more multi-line text. So I've got some more things down here which should be at that small size, 2.5. I'll just bring this back a bit. Okay, so again with multi-line text, just going to make a rectangle. That's better. So scale, then 1 to 50, enter. Oops. The date, that's close enough, and your name. So it's important to put your name on all the drawings you do. drawn by doesn't hurt. So then we've got some text that's bigger. So back to multi-line text. This time again I'm just going to click a rectangle the same way as I did the previous ones. But then up on the ribbon I'm going to type in a new height. So this text here looks like it's more than double the height of the other text. So I'm going to say it's probably 7 mil. And now I can type portfolio. Enter. And then I can change the text type as I type. This time to 5 mil. And just make sure it stays on that. There we go. And you can always move the text afterwards just by selecting it and then clicking onto the grid. Bring it across. You can move this together again by selecting it and then this time using move to move it down. And again, you can move it all across together as well. Okay, so if I move things around, obviously I can get some more room for this text box, but I'll leave that for now. And so then, finally, maybe just to make it clearer when you are working at different scales, how scale actually works in a CAD program. You can see here you've got this scale bar. So notice it's got measurements, and they should all be in metres, or they should all represent a metre. So when you're drawing in a CAD program, you are setting a scale. So remember, I've set 1 to 50 as my scale here. But as I've been saying, that only affects things like text, and you'll see in a moment dimensions. But the things that you draw that need to be a specific size, like the objects you design, the walls and the furniture and the other things in your space, they should be a certain measurement. For those, don't set a scale. Don't think about scale, just draw them the size they are. Okay, so is that the way, when you're drawing by hand, is that how you do it? No, that's right. It's the opposite when you draw by hand to in a CAD program. So when you draw by hand, you get your scale ruler out, and if you're drawing at 1 to 100, and you need the wall to be 5 metres long, you make it 50 mil long. Using your scale ruler, you can just measure that. And so that would be the size on the page. In a CAD program though, if you want a wall to be 5 metres long, you type in 5,000 as the length. You don't divide it by 100, or you don't scale it down the way you do with a scale ruler. So here I've got a scale bar, and you just draw it the size that is showing. So we've got a rectangle there, which needs to be 5 metres across, and then the height, well, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 divisions there, and the divisions are, so they're 200 across, and so they're not quite as high as that, so I'll say 150, I think, and so that means 300 in total should be the height. So I'm going to draw a rectangle, just go clicking roughly where I want the start to be, and then type in 5,000, that's the essential thing, comma 300 for the height. Okay, now I think this scale might be wrong, you know. Yeah, it is, I'd say. I had a feeling, because 5 metres is a big scale on a 1 to 50. But that's okay, just draw it bigger than it's shown here. That's not correct. So that scale, has anyone tried printing it out and measuring off? maybe this is on A3. Maybe that's the problem. Yeah, that's what it is. Okay, so you can see there the objects on the sheet are smaller in relation to the page than what I've got here. So we're doing it on A4, and you can easily reduce it down so it will fit on A4. So I'm going to leave it like that. But remember, the scale is going to seem much bigger on a smaller A4 page. Let's move this over. Let me see, does it give you a page size? I don't think it does with this one. In the brief it does tell you the page sizes, I just haven't got those. Oh, maybe open it up though. Oh no, it doesn't tell you. And yeah, just visually I can tell it is A3. But it's going to be easier for you if you do it on A4 anyway. So here I'm going to draw a line through the middle there and then explode the outer edge so that I can then offset across 1000 and do that 4 times, so I've got 5 segments. And then put the measurements on there. So what I'm going to do though is move this off to the side and show you how to put it onto a page and make that consistent with what we're seeing here. Yeah. So we've got lines there that are at 200, just in the first segment. And then just use a hatch to make that solid. The next one we need to offset 500. So once you do something like this, you should be able to reuse it on all your drawings. So it's good to do it properly, and then again you can just use normal text, and here single line text instead of multi-line text would probably work better. So starting there, it'll ask for the rotation angle, so I'm going to press enter to keep it at 0 and then type in 0 for the actual text. The next one, again, single line text, and I can line that up using the blips that come up. You can see there that will work. Another option though would just be to copy that text across. And I've done it one too early, so I'm going to use move and move that to the right place, which should be there. And now with move again, I might just fine tune that so that it's, oh no, that's okay. So I'll just use copy and snap then to each of these meter measurements. That's probably easier than drawing the text repeatedly, and type in each new measurement. And so again, I'm going to do it a little bit differently to what's shown here. You've got the scale on in the title, but on a scale bar like this, it's really good practice to put a scale label. So I'm going to copy this text down below. and then just make that 1 to 50. We don't need to say scale, but you should always put the scale that it's indicating. And well, I was going to say I'll let you draw the north point on your own, but it's such a quick thing that I can just quickly show you by drawing that just by eye. It's good practice using the object snaps to get that to line up properly. It doesn't need to be perfectly even with the line distance coming out from the circle, because it should look a little bit hand-drawn and a little bit rough. So there, I'm just going to click to give an offset distance rather than typing in a measurement. And then trim. And finally just hatch. So there again, it's easy just to copy the text rather than making it again, and that's often the case. Once you get some text drawn, usually really easy just to copy one of those and modify it. So again, notice I've got the those things off to the side. And it's because I want to show you sheets, which is something we really haven't looked at very much yet, but you'll need to do this for the later exercises as well. So I'll just maximise this. And so I'll come back to do the dimensions afterwards, just again to show you something different. You'll see you should have tabs down the bottom with model as the first tab, then layout 1 as your next tab. You can just select that and layout 2 will be there as well. And they're pages that are set up for you. So if you've been wondering how to print, this is the best way, using these layout tabs. So to set them up, you just need to right click on the one you want to change, go to Page Setup Manager, and then click Modify. So if you're used to printing things and setting up your page, this is where you do that, Page Setup. And so here, I'm going to choose a thing that'll make a PDF file. So have you all made PDFs by printing? Or anyone made? Yep. So if you're not used to that, that's something you'll need to do throughout the course in lots of different subjects. Some programs like Word and most of the Microsoft programs these days let you save as a PDF, but traditionally it's only Adobe programs that could do that. And so normally to make a PDF, you print to it rather than saving as a PDF. So if you're not used to that, just spend some time setting up a page using, you've got Adobe PDF as well here, but DWG to PDF comes with AutoCAD. So you can always choose that in your list of printers. The other option is just to choose a printer in the room. So we've got the printer over on the other side. The laser printer is PL E10, E01, E106. So you need to choose your printer first, whether it's a real printer or a PDF printer. Then choose your page size. So I'm going to make it A3, just to show you something different, rather than doing the A4 that I had before. Then the plot style table, we're set to monochrome. And we've got to start looking at plot styles starting from today and going into next week. So this is how you get things to print black, instead of the colours that you've set with the layers. Exactly, yeah. And then leave the scale on 1:1 and the layout or the area to print on layout. So it's normally just the printer, page size, and then your plot style table, those three things. Click OK, close, and it'll give you that new page size. So you can see straight away that this original view is small compared to my new page, because the original page was basically A4 and it's increased it to A3. So what we're looking at there is a viewport, and I'm going to select it by just clicking onto the border, and then I'm going to stretch it so that it's bigger. So I know this might be new to you, but it's worth spending some time on, and you'll need to do this with all of the exercises. You can come back to them after you've drawn what you need. You can come back and add these things. So I'm going to then click on the button down the bottom that says paper. That will take me, or make the viewport active. And if I zoom now, it's only going to zoom inside that view. So I'm going to zoom so that I can see basically the objects that I want centered inside my view. And now I'm going to choose the scale I want from this list down here. And that's where I set 1 to 50. So if you've been wondering how you print things at different scales, that's how you set it up. The page itself stays 1 to 1, but inside the viewport it's scaled by the amount you need. So and you'll see why in a second. I'm going to have multiple views, so I'm going to pan just to get these things a bit higher on the page. And then I'm going to click on the button that now says model. So remember before it said paper? It tells you by having model there that you're in model space, you're working with these objects, and you can even draw and change them in there if you want to. But if I click where it says model and it goes back to paper, now I can't select any of those things inside the view. All I can select is the viewport. So I'm going to change the size of that so that I can only see the things I want. So remember, I'm going to do those other things separately. So I'm going to go now onto the Layout tab at the end and click on the rectangular button. And I'm going to just draw a new rectangle. And you can see it's got the same things again. They're smaller, but it's everything that I have here in this smaller viewport. I'm going to click on paper to change it to model. And now I can zoom in there on the scale bar and then change the scale to 1 to 50. And that's now the same size as it would be in here. So just to show you, there's the text. Notice it's exactly the same size as above. And that's how you get multiple views on your page. And they can even be at different scales, which is really important. Often you will need several different scales on the one page. So it's a bit small. The viewport's cutting off the left, so I'm going to click on model. That'll take me back to the page, so it says paper. So you're constantly switching back and forth, and now I can just stretch that viewport out to show everything. And I can even move the viewport. The normal commands work, so if I go and use move, I can just bring all of that down to the corner. And I could even break up these different things into different viewports. So rather than drawing it all again, to rearrange it, I can just, again, make that smaller still, and go and make yet another viewport, just to show you the process again. So on the Layout tab, rectangular, and I'll just click corner, and then a second corner for my new viewport. Again, click on the paper button, zoom roughly to the location you want. So I want to get these parts here shown separately. Then set your scale accurately. So for all of these it will just be 1 to 50. So you can pan as much as you like after that. That won't affect the scale. But remember, if you zoom, zooming is the same as scaling. So zooming changes the scale, And you can see that the numbers there have gone crazy to something that's not very useful. So you can just change that to 1 to 50 again and try not to zoom. Go back to model. So clicking on the model button, now I'm back to paper. And again, I can just use the grips on the corner to change the size of this viewport so it's showing what I want. And this is why you might have seen already, if you've seen other people in here drawing with AutoCAD, why you can have things laid out pretty roughly on your model tab and then arrange it properly, on layout 1 once you go to your page. Right, so there you can see I've got these parts of the arcs there coming up, but I can easily just change that viewport so that it's a bit shorter and it'll take those away. And so I can do, again, another viewport, back to layout, and just rectangular again, and make one for the text box. So again, click on the paper button to go to model, zooming. So I've got it roughly where I want it, but now I need to set the scale always to get the size right. Then I can pan to still adjust that position. And again, by clicking on model, that'll take me back to the page where I can select the viewport and keep adjusting that size. So I'm going to quickly show you dimensions after this, but I just want to also show you now if I look at the print preview. So just to show you what I did there, I went to the menu and I've just chosen print. And the good thing with AutoCAD, once you set up the print settings, it's all saved in your file. So you can just choose print from the menu. See, it's got the setup I did before, so I can click preview. So it's okay, but I've got the borders of these, all of these viewports, which gives the game away and tells people that I've got these different views, and I don't want that. So this one I'll just bring in a little bit because I don't want to see that line. Okay, so I want to make these non-printing. So, in the layers list there, so in layer properties, we're going to go make a new layer called view. And again, this might be a little bit much to take in if you haven't done the later exercises, but once you do the later exercises, then you'll have to start setting this up. So any layer can be set if you go over to the end there. Sorry, I just can't see. There we are. So it's just a bit small on the projector. You can find the little printer icon, which sets it to be non-printing. Okay, so you can make any layer set to never print. And now I can just put all of these things onto that new layer. So that way I can still see them and adjust them, but when I go to print, there we go. Okay, so it'll take a few goes before that's an easy thing to do, but that's something you'll do with every project you work on in AutoCAD. And so just to finish off, I'll do a few dimensions. I'm not going to do them all, but just to remind you about dimensions, just like a text style, you need to go and set up the dimension style first. So just make sure you remember that very first step. On the Annotation Panel, click on the Dimension Style button. I'll let you have a look in the notes in your Week 6 folder where you have that file, dimension, here we go, set up for Dim 50 dimension style. And so that shows you all of the tabs that you need to set up. So I'm just going to do that. I won't talk you through it all. So I'm just going to go to new, call it 1 to 50, and just do those settings. Basically the same. Might not be exactly the same, but it'll be very close. There we go. Okay, so if you can see the dimension style in your preview window and it looks okay, then it's usually a good sign. So that's done, and now I'll make it current and close and just draw some dimensions of each type. So with the linear dimension tool, you can just click 2 points and then place the measurement. Go to it again, click 2 points, place a measurement, and again. If you're wondering if there's a faster way of doing dimensions in a row, there is. Have a look on the Annotate tab. I'll let you have a look for that. Radial dimensions, you just need to choose radius from that list of dimension styles or dimension types. Choose an object and then place the measurement. Angular is the only other one. So here, oh no, we've got aligned as well. I'll show you that. But I'll just show you angular first. So you can choose any two objects, two lines, and then place the angle where you want it to go. And, oh yes, I said I'd show you aligned. So here, with aligned, I can give a diagonal measurement, say along this arrow, which is 884. At first, that's something you will probably attempt to do, because you might think, well, I've drawn a line that's at a different angle, and I want to know how long it is. But what you find, people with more, you know, a bit of experience working on these drawings will very rarely do that. Normally, a better way to dimension that is just with linear. So linear won't give you that diagonal measurement. Linear instead only gives vertical, or, so I'll just bring this back, vertical or horizontal measurements. But that's fine, because with those measurements we can work out the angle. So you don't always need the diagonal measurements. In fact, you usually don't need them. Just making that a bit neater. Okay, so can you see how with those, just those measurements and one more across this way, let's get it from here. Yep, that's all we need. I suppose, to be totally clear, you could also give a measurement this way. So with those measurements, you don't need that diagonal measurement. You can work it all out just with those horizontal and vertical measurements. And it's usually a better way of doing it, because if you give a diagonal measurement, you also have to give the angle. And if you think about it, giving a distance in each direction is the same as giving the angle. So two distances usually are the same as a distance and an angle. And that's why linear is the default tool, not aligned. Okay, so make sure you try some dimensions. You don't need to do all of them that are shown, but definitely try some. So if you finish that exercise, still come back and make sure you try the dimensions on it. And then when you go to do the boardroom, you will definitely need to do those. So you can just attempt those. And I wanted to show you finally that now when I go back to my sheet, notice that, of course, those dimensions that I've added show up here because they're inside the viewport as well. I'll finish the video there, and I'll do the boardroom next.